So just go ahead and have the conversation. Hey fam, it's your girl MarshaunO. I am out here and I want to talk to you guys today about 3 things to think about before approaching a tough conversation. Now, first let me just talk about what a tough conversation is. A tough conversation is one of those conversations that you've been thinking about, that you know that you need to have. However, it has been giving you some type of anxiety and you don't want to deal with it. But you know it's going to create and make your relationship better, and so this is the very conversation that you know that you need to have. So just go ahead and have the conversation. However, there are 3 things that I'm going to give you today that you should be thinking about before you have this tough conversation. Okay, so 3 things to think about before you have the tough conversation. The first thing is to acknowledge that the conversation itself is a difficult one to have. So when you approach your spouse, your partner, and it's time to have this conversation, when you approach your spouse or your partner, you're ready to have this tough conversation. One of the things that you need to think about is how it is acknowledging the difficulty it is to have this tough conversation within itself. And literally you want to use those words, hey babe, guess what, or whatever your wording is, whatever your pet name that you have for your spouse. So you know what, this actual conversation is a tough one for me to have, but it is something that I've been thinking about, and it is something that will improve our relationship. It is something that will deepen our connection if we have this conversation and we actually both come up with some type of a solution in order to work things out and make them go a lot smoother within the relationship. So that's something that you want to acknowledge before you have the tough conversation within itself. Okay, so that's number 1. And then number 2, you want to think about having this at a good time and in a good place. A good time is a time when your spouse, your partner is laughing and joking. They're not irritated. They're not coming in with an attitude. And so you want to make sure that you guys are already going through your, how are you guys doing? I mean, how was your day? What have you been doing? All of that stuff. You're starting to go through that. And then you want to, this is just as a side note, do not say we need to talk. Just go ahead and start to talk. So when you're going through the, how was your day? And, I thought about you, whatever. Just say, hey, babe, there's something that I've been thinking about that we need to discuss. Are you open to having a conversation? And, whatever it is, right? The conversation about X, I've been thinking about it. Let's chat about it for a few moments and then start to chat about it, right? So this is why I've been thinking about it. This is why it's been heavy on my heart and why it's been taking a toll on me. Just kind of go through it. Put some emotion in there, but not crying emotion. Just say, I feel, I've been thinking. Basically what I'm saying is that you are not blaming your spouse when you're having this particular conversation. You're saying I statements. You're using I statements as much as possible, so your spouse, your partner can keep an open mind, can keep an open thought process and not go on the defensive. So that's what you're doing. You're trying to keep everything open, keep everything as straight to the point as possible, but also being heard, being feeling understood and feeling heard as well. So that's the second thing to think about. Good time and good place. So, think about a good time and a good place, all right? The third thing is to take a time out if you need to. So think about this. If the conversation starts to go downhill, and you notice that you guys are starting to go back and forth, you notice that you guys are starting to argue a bit, your temperature is rising, you feel like you need to yell instead of just speak, then that is a time where you could just suggest, hey babe, maybe it's time for us to take a time out, 20-30 minutes, even tomorrow, and then we'll come back to this topic and let's talk about it later. That way you have time to think about what you need to say. I'll have time to think about what I need to say, and that way we can come up with some type of solution in order to work this thing out, in order to connect with one another on a deeper level, and in order to feel heard and understood. So those are 3 things that you should think about before you have a tough conversation. But sis, guess what? But bruh, you have to have the tough conversation. You have to, because that is going to be the only way to deepen your relationship, the only way for you to feel understood, the only way for your relationship to grow. And every romantic relationship is all about growth. All right, think about it, implement it, and definitely let me know how your relationship is going, especially once you do. Cool it. And definitely let me know how your relationship is going, especially when you do implement these very simple tips, but also have the tough conversation. I'll see you guys in another video. Two finger salute.